Good evening, everyone. I am Deepak Durga Prasad from MedWorld Expo, a unified digital healthcare platform connecting manufacturers, distributors, hospitals, clinics, labs, and healthcare experts worldwide. Now, we are delighted to have you all join for us an insightful session on CBCT in endodontics, a topic that has significantly transformed diagnosis, treatment planning, and clinical outcomes in modern endodontic practice. It's my privilege to introduce our esteemed speaker, Dr. Smriti Rohila. Dr. Rohila is a senior lecturer at Boja Dental College and Hospital, and she also practices as a consultant endodontist at Dental Village. With an impressive 13 years of total clinical and academic year experience, she brings a rich blend of teaching expertise and hands-on clinical knowledge. Over to you, ma'am.
Hello, everyone. I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
A very good evening to everyone. Thank you for the kind introduction. Thank you so much. Let's begin. Okay, let me introduce myself again. Myself, Dr. Smriti Rohila. Currently, I'm working as a faculty in Pojia Dental College and Hospital, and this is my private setup at Dental Village, where I practice as a consultant endodontist. I have been incorporating CBCT in my clinical practice regularly for almost 4 to 5 years now, and I was fortunate enough to participate in a national IAS case contest for which I was awarded as the best jury award, and this is one of the finest moment of my professional life. So thank you so much. Let's begin with the topic. CBCT and embracing the third dimension in endodontics. Why it is considered to be a third dimension, we will see in further slides. As we all know that in endodontics, diagnosis is not the end, but the beginning of the practice. Because once a diagnosis is established, then only we can make a proper treatment plan, and then only we can determine the prognosis of that particular case, whether it is a surgical case or a non-surgical case or just a diagnosis one. So diagnosis is not just the end, but it is beginning of the practice. It has been very well said by Martinez Fisher. So, radiographic examination is considered to be an essential part in diagnosing and managing endodontic problems and is generally performed with a periapical radiograph. For me, it is kind of a game changer in spotting troubles that are usually hidden to the naked eye. So, I consider dental radiography as the dentist superpower as they allow us to see between the teeth, under the gums, or into the jaws. For intraoral radiography, generally we have intraoral radiographs, which includes IOPs, bite wings, and occlusal radiographs. And extraoral radiographs includes our OPG, lateral cephalogram, etc. But now the question arises: then why CBCT is required? Why is it so essential nowadays in our clinical practice? Not only in clinical practice, but also in the academic, as an academician also. So maybe with this slide, we can also highlight the importance of CBCT in endodontics. As you can see, this is not a pot, this is a belly. So it highlights the importance of light in photography. Similarly, CBCT is also essential in the modern endodontic practice as well. Uh, So why CBCT is needed? Because the anatomy in the human body is three-dimensional, which is compressed into a two-dimensional image into our conventional radiographs, which is due to the superimposition of roots, and it also prevents the full appreciation of the root canal anatomy in its surrounding tissues. Also, a single periapical image has a limited diagnostic ability because of the anatomical noise from the superimposed structures such as maxillary sinus, zygomatic arch, inferior dental nerve, etc. With this figure also, it is very well clear how the 3D image, the 3D object, the image of which it is converted into a 2D image, it is compressed. Now the difference between 2D versus 3D: in 2D image we deal with the pixel, whereas in three-dimensional study we study in the voxel form. So let's see brief history of CBCT throughout the world. In 1972, Hounsfield discovered CT scanner, for which he was awarded with the honors of the British knighthood. Similarly, on the other part of the world, Cormac was also working on the similar computed scanner, and in 1979, they both received Nobel Peace Prize in medicine along with the for the generation of the computed scanner. In 1974, Rob et al. He conducted basic CBCT experiment to image the chest and the heart. It was Toyo Fuku et al. In 1986 who did basic research on the application of CBCT to the jawbone using a video television system and a two-dimensional X-ray imaging intensifier. During the same time, Zonarch was developed as a multi-function panoramic tomography method in the 1980s, in which the X-ray tube was revolved around the head and in which the slit X-ray beam was exposed parallel to the axis of the rotation. Afterwards, Mozo et al. Were responsible for the development of the first commercial CBCT machine that was known as Newton 9000. It was commercially available for the dentomaxillofacial imaging in 2001. Arya et al. Is known as the father of dentistry, father of CBCT in dentistry, because he extensively worked on CBCT in Japan at the Nihon University in 1997. And the first US FDA clearance for a dental CBCT was granted to Newtom DVT 9000 in the year 2001. It was basically developed by the Italian scientist. This is an image showing the CBCT block diagram, which was described by Rob et al., who conducted the first CBCT experiment to image the chest and the heart. This was the basic model described by Toyo Fuku et al. In the year 1986, in which he used CBCT for the jawbone using a video television system, and the two-dimensional X-ray imaging intensifier was used. This is the image of the same jawbone that he received after the scan. This is a prototype of the local cone beam CT scan and image intensifier with a diameter of 10 centimeter that was known as Scanora. It was developed in the later 1990s years. So this picture demonstrates the X-ray projection beam comparing the acquisition geometry of the cone beam CT on the left and the flat beam CT scan, in which you can see that in the fan beam geometry, primary reconstruction of the data produces axial slices from which the secondary reconstruction generates orthogonal planes. The amount of scattered radiation and the recording by the cone beam CT acquisition is substantially higher, reducing the image contrast and it increases the image noise. So this is a beautiful article by Benavides et al. In which he explained the effective doses and equivalent background radiation exposure time for the selected dental and medical examination and procedures, in which you can see for the small FOB or the medium FOB cone beam CT that was used in adult patient has an effective dose of around 19 to 652, whereas in conventional head CT scan it was 860 to 1500 microsieverts. So it is very less effective dose that is being used in the dental CBCT scans as compared to the medical CBCT scan. So Shatsky et al. In the year 2021 also gave some estimation of the effective doses and radiation risk from various dental X-ray examinations, which includes least by the film detectors of 3.5 to 8.2 microsieverts, which is increased to 1.2 to 2.5 in digital detectors. Panoramic examination has 22.9, whereas CBCT on a whole has 530.6 microsieverts. You will be very surprised to know, even if you sleep next to another person, you also get radiation exposure of mean of about 0.05 microsieverts. And if you take a transatlantic flight, you will get an exposure of around 37.5 microsieverts. So we get radiation exposure everywhere in some of the other form. So the radiation dose that is being received by the patient during the CBCT scan varies according to different parameters such as the type of scanner or the brand, maybe Carestream or Planmaker. The field of view that may include a low FOV or medium FOV or high FOV, the exposure time, the tube current and potential, and the number of collected basic images depending upon the FOV, and the region of the jaw that is undergoing the scan. So these are the different parameters that determine the radiation dose that is being received by the patient during the CBCT scan. Also, the resolution of the images that we obtain in CBCT varies according to the viewing parameters on the computer screen, what kind of viewing software data you using, how the images are the manipulation of the images is being done, maybe contrast or brightness is increased or decreased, what is the slice thickness that you are examining, and also the filters that are being used by the diagnostic centers, which includes Meta filter, BAL filter, and we have to know how to read between the different grays. So the majority of the currently available scanners provide isotropic voxel size that varies between 0.05 to 0.6 mm. The smaller is the voxel size, then higher is the spatial resolution, but also it leads to the higher image noise. To maintain an adequate signal to noise level, the exposure will automatically increase as the voxel size is reduced to create higher resolution images. That means if the voxel size is decreased, you have better resolution of the image, but you have to maintain somehow a balance between the two so that the image noise is being decreased. So generally, a demand for a very high level of detail and accuracy requires a smaller voxel size that has to be selected. So coming to the radiation safety of the CBCT, optimization is being used, that is radiation optimization. So optimization is the process of making use of a resource as effectively as possible. When it comes to radiology, the parameters or there has been a paradigm shift from using ALARA to ALADA, and now ALADA IP, that is as low as diagnostically acceptable, being indication oriented and patient specific. Patient specifics means you have to see the gender of the patient, the age of the patient. For example, the adult dose will be somehow different from the pediatric dose. Indication oriented means whether you have to check whether is it CBCT actually necessary in that particular case, or we can avoid it, or we can use conventional imaging such as OPGs and radiographs and RVGs and all. So we have to really check if it is actually needed, and it has to be patient specific. So keeping these 2 points in mind, you have to use the dose that is diagnostically acceptable. So optimized CBCT protocol should consider several key points that includes patient age, size, sex, justification criteria, and you have to see between the risk and benefits. So for example, sometimes pregnant patients may come, so you have to judge between the is it actually necessary to get a CBCT done, or we can avoid it. So you have to make a balance between the risk and the benefits before prescribing a CBCT scan. So CBCT offers us certain advantages, which includes image accuracy as compared to the normal radiographic images. Size and cost is less as compared to the medical CT, but not less than the conventional dental radiographs. You get an interactive analysis could be done. There is lesser patient and radiation dose as compared to the conventional CT scan. You have rapid scan time within 15 to 40 seconds. The whole scan is done, and you get interactive display modes that is unique to the maxillofacial imaging. So these are certain points which which motivates us to get a CBCT scan done for the patient if it is really indicated. Somehow there are certain limitations of CBCT, which includes poor soft tissue contrast, or there may be generation of artifacts, which may be due to some existing restorations or treatments or implants placed, which actually decreases the diagnostic quality of the images. For these artifacts, there are certain situations we can ask our diagnostic center to use, such as MAR filters, so that the artifacts are being reduced or they are removed. So also there is another limitation, which includes the noise that appears in the images, that is generally by the CBCT technique, or somehow the patient gets moved in between during the scan. So some kind of artifacts or noise appears during the scan. Now the next term comes as the FOB characterization. FOB refers to the volume of the tissue basically or in the patient heads that is being irradiated during the exposure, and that is later reconstructed in the computer as the region of interest. In general, the larger is the FOB, higher is the radiation dose to the patient. Hence, limited or small FOB scans are typically proposed for the endodontist. The point here is small FOV scans. This point has been highlighted multiple times for the endodontic practice. So we need to be very careful. For a small FOV scans, generally the radiation exposure, radiation dose to the patient is being reduced. So you can, with this diagram, we can see how much is the FOV that is being categorized. Similarly, Scarf and Farben introduced gave a FOV characterization for the different CBCT systems, which is generally the amount area of the head and neck that is being irradiated. For the craniofacial region, it is approximately more than 15 centimeter, which extends from the head vertex to the inferior mandibular border. Maxillofacial region includes 10 to 15 centimeter in height, going from nascent to the inferior mandibular border. Interarch generally includes both the arches. Single arch includes 5 to 7, either maxillary or the mandibular arches. Localized to the region of interest, that is 5 centimeter or less, that is being really indicated in the endodontic practice. So for endodontics, small or limited FOB is preferred for the following reasons, because lesser is the FOB, higher is the spatial resolution, and it improves the accuracy of endodontic specific tasks such as the visualization of the small features such as an accessory canal, orifice, etc. There is also reduced radiation exposure to the patient. Also, it is time saver due to smaller volume that is to be interpreted or studied later by the radiologist, also with the endodontist. So the degree of the spatial resolution is determined by the voxel size. It is desirable to use a CBCT machine whose resolution should not exceed, that is more than 200 micrometers. That is considered to be the average width of the periodontal space. So this point has to be kept in mind. So while studying a CBCT volumetric data, we have three orthogonal planes, which includes axial, coronal, and the sagittal. We can see different things in different sections or the orthogonal planes. These three orthogonal planes are further divided into sections. These includes various slices in different sections. We have multiple slices at regular interval that started from 0.5 to 1.5. We have axial section, we have slices in the coronal sections, we have slices in the sagittal sections. These are sequential, that is after the gap of 1 mm or whatever the slice thickness you use. So if you use a slice thickness of 0.5 mm, these sections or these slices are at present at the 0.5 intervals. So now the question arises, what to see in what section? So in axial slices, you can see the location and the number of roots and root canal orifices. You can detect any extra canal in the form of mid-mesial, mid-distal, MB2s or MB3s. MB2s are way more common in maxillary first molar, approximately due to the anatomic variation in the Indian population. And with the various CBCT studies, in fact, 96% of the maxillary first molars contains MB2, and around 50 to 55% maxillary first molars contains MB3. So you need to look for the extra canals, and CBCT could be a game changer in locating the extra canals, especially MB3s. You can look for the shape of the canals that could be round, oval, and ribbon shaped. So you can determine your obturation technique or the cleaning and shaping technique that could be used, because it is easier to clean and shape round canals as compared to the oval and ribbon shaped canals. So you have to look for the proper technique if you know the shape of the canals. You can precisely locate the isthmus or communication between various canals, because isthmus needs to be clean. The microflora that is being left in the isthmus area can lead to your endodontic treatment failure. Also, you can look for the position of the periapical lesions with respect to the root apex. This needs to be correlated with the slices of the other sections as well. So now what we can see in coronal section, we can see for the buccal and buccolingual and vertical extension of the perioapical lesions, we can check out for the relationship of roots to surrounding anatomical structures such as maxillary sinus or inferior alveolar nerve. We can see for the canal curvature in buccolingual direction. We can see for vertical root fractures, and it also helps in evaluating the bone thickness, which could be used in surgical endodontics as well as implant placements. In the sagittal sections, we can look for the relationship of canals within each root. We can check out for the length and curvature of the root canal. We can see for the extension of the lesion if present into the adjacent teeth or structures. We can use the sagittal sections for the evaluation of resorptive defects, which could be internal or the external. Now the question arises, how do our CBCT needs to be prescribed? There has to be a proper format. We have to give certain basic information to the diagnostician or the radiologist, that how many teeth are to be evaluated, which is the actual region of interest. Is the patient undergoing any endodontic treatment or not? Either you are evaluating for any fracture or perforation. So we have to provide the diagnostic center with clinical notes or findings, and we have to very clear with the objectives of the scan, or we have to provide with the scan purpose. So you need to be very thorough, very straightforward to the diagnostic center. I want this, I am expecting this, and I want these kind of images or the information from the scan. So you need to correlate, you need to work together as a team with your radiologist. So for the endodontic CBCTs, we need to determine between, we have to check for the FOV size or resolution. We only need small FOV for the endodontic purpose. And also if it is apparent or suspected that pathosis that could be extending to other root apices or the regional, or there is some larger extension of the lesion, a larger FOV could also be indicated. Also, a larger FOV scan could be indicated in patients such as if he is undergoing multiple treatment. For supposingly you have to get a CBCT scan of a mandibular right first molar, and also patient is having an impacted third molar on the same quadrant. So you can advise a larger FOV scan also. So you need to determine that if you have to, for endodontics, you have to give more focus on the quality of information versus the quantity of information. And since we all know that the precision is very critical in endodontics, we select a 360-degree protocol. For example, if you look at the picture here, the scanner is showing a 180-degree to 360-degree rotation. That means the X-ray tube and the 2D detector array that is rotated 360-degree around the head. For the endodontics, we need to select a 360-degree protocol, and we need to ask our diagnostic center to use this protocol for our endo purpose. So we have to work as a team for the endodontic treatment. So there are certain guidelines that has been set by the different associations throughout the world, such as AAE and AAOMR and European Society, that has given certain guidelines to so when and to where prescribe a CBCT for the patient. So in general, CBCT should be considered on a case-by-case basis. Not every case deserves to get a CBCT scan done. So you have to justify it whether it is actually needed or not. And for endodontics, only a high-resolution small FOV that is less than 5 centimeter is only applicable in endodontics, which minimizes the effective dose and which also improves the spatial resolution of the images. So next we will see different recommendations that are being set by the American Association of Endodontics, and then we will see some of the cases in which the CBCT has helped in making the treatment plan, help in diagnosis, or somehow it has changed the course of the treatment plan. So first of all, we will be seeing some of the recommendations. So the first recommendation is, if your normal radiographs or your normal test, that is clinical test, does not help you to get onto a particular diagnosis, then CBCT could be advised to the patient. So the first recommendation is pre-operative diagnosis of the patient who present with contradictory or non-specific clinical signs and symptoms associated with the untreated teeth or previously endodontic treated teeth. In such cases, the bite wings or the normal radiographs or perioapical radiographs, it's could be utilized to complicate the complement the CBCT imaging. Second recommendation is an intraoperative assessment for the management and localization of the calcified canals and management of any iatrogenic errors. So this is an intraoperative. The first recommendation was preoperative. Now, coming to the third recommendation, which is for the post-operative treatment, evaluation. So, intraoral radiograph should be preferred first for the immediate post-operative imaging. But in cases with complications, a limited FOV CBCT would be considered adjunct to the IOPS or the bite wings. Recommendation 4 is written for the detection of the non-vertical root fracture in cases of non-surgical retreatment. Recommendation is 5 is to evaluate the non-healing of previously endodontic treatment, which helped to determine the need for the further treatment, such as surgical, non-surgical, or extraction. Supposedly, 4-6 to this, RCT has been done, but the patient has presented with certain complications, or the patient has presented with pain or swelling. So a CBCT could be advised to the patient, so we can decide the further course of treatment. We have to go for non-surgical treatment or surgical retreatment, or we have to go for the extraction. So recommendation is 5 is for this. The next recommendation is you have to check for the non-surgical retreatment, for example, of overextended root canal obturation materials, separated endodontic instruments, or localization of perforation. This could be used in the intraoperative situation also. Recommendation 7 is for the pre-operative or pre-surgical treatment planning. We have to localize the root apices, or we have to evaluate the proximity to the adjacent anatomic structures. For example, suppose a patient presents with a swelling in the anterior palate, right? So it could have extended into the nasal floor. I'll be showing a case of such in the further slides. So we have to check for the pre-surgical treatment planning. So how extensive is the lesion? How many root apices does it involve? So it helps in the pre-surgical treatment planning. Next recommendation is some special conditions such as surgical placement of the implants or some traumatic dental injuries. That is recommendation number 9, such as root fractures or subluxation, extrusive luxations. There is some sort of alveolar fracture. So that is recommendation number 9. Recommendation number 10 includes the localization and differentiation of external and internal resorptive defects, and to determine the appropriate treatment plan and prognosis of such cases. Recommendation 11 includes for CBCT for the evaluation of healing following the surgical as well as non-surgical endodontic treatment, that is the outcome assessment. Recommendation number 12 includes, in the absence of clinical sign and symptoms, limited FOB CBCT may be appropriate modality for the follow-up evaluation if it was indicated for the initial evaluation. Recommendation 5 was in cases of pre-treatment, whether we have to go for some further treatment in the form of non-surgical or surgical treatment. Right, so these are 12 recommendations that are being set by the AE in association with the OMR. So this is a small video I'll be showing. Just a second. So this is a CBCT scan. I am showing when and how we can read a CBCT scan. So this is a CBCT scan of Planmaker Romexis viewer. This is from the Carestream. This is Romexis, that is the software of the Planmaker. We have 3 orthogonal planes, sagittal, coronal, and axial, and this demonstrates a 3D reconstructed images. So this is a patient info that is being saved. Also, we get to know about the, just a second. See, we get all the parameters on which the CBCT scan was done. What was the voltage? What was the current, tube current? What was the exposure time? So this whole CBT scan just took 15.121 seconds. All right. This is the exposure date. So we get all kind of information that is being saved in the CBCT scan. So moving on further. So this is the toolbar. We can adjust the brightness, contrast, and the sharpness of the image. As you can see, we are adjusting the contrast here. Using the contrast tool, we can adjust the brightness of all the sections. We can increase or decrease the sharpness of the scan images. All right. So moving on to the axial sections, we can look for the number of roots and root apices. We will be glad to know, although the CBCT scan, this is a large FOV scan that was done for the patient for the multiple treatments. The patient has a history of trauma for the anterior teeth. It has open apices. Also, he had some issue with the maxillary sinus as well, on the left maxillary sinus. So a full FOV scan was given advice to the patient. So we will be surprised to know that this premolar, the first maxillary premolar on the both sides are three rooted. You know, three different roots are being seen with three different root canals. So this is the axial section that we are going ahead. This is the sagittal section. This is the open apex that you can see. And the amount of lesion, the buccal cortical plate is being destroyed completely. However, the palatal cortical plate is intact. So this is the scroll bar, and this is the planes in which you can explore the CBCT scan. Now comes the coronal section. This for this you can see the open apex here. This is the open apex, and you can see the extension of the lesion as well. So here comes the maxillary sinus. You can see the proximity of the palatal roots of the roots of the maxillary molars and premolars with the maxillary sinus. This is the CBCT reconstructed image. So you can see here the lesion, the buccal cortical plate is completely destroyed. However, the palatal bone is intact. You can see in different sections, from the front, from the back, from the right, from the left. So this was a brief overview of the CBCT scan. How does it looks, how different sections or orthogonal planes are, how different slices are there. All right. So to study, if you work with the diagnostic center, you can always ask them to send you the DICOM files, and you can use these free softwares to view yourself. You can download it in your laptop or mobile phone. Some are compatible with the mobile phones also, so you can use them. For me, I particularly use ITK Snap. It is very much user friendly, followed by 3D Slicer. You can use it for different purposes. You can just ask the diagnostic center to send you the DICOM files on your email, and then you can download them, and then you can open the files, DICOM files, in these any of the free softwares. For me, ITK Snap and 3D Slices are particularly very user friendly. So you can download any one of them. So that was a brief video. Now how we can evaluate or read a CBCT. If we do it by step, it becomes very easy. So step number 1 is start with low expectations. When you are new to US, you need to keep your expectations slightly low, because you may not understand everything at the first go. You need to spend some time. You need to explore each and every slices, each and every orthogonal plane to come to a conclusion. So you have to start with a low expectation. So next step is you have to begin with the axial plane. That is most easiest one to study. You have to scroll from the CEJ towards the apex. ideally you can you have to select one direction. Either you go from apical to CJ or the coronal side or the occlusal surface, or occlusal to the apical. Since we prefer to go from occlusal to the apex, because somehow the disease starts at the occlusal level, then it progresses apically where the pulpitis or some lesion is present. So generally we start with the occlusal or from the CJ, and then we move slowly to the apex. So in the axial section, we can identify the number of canals before the split. We can look for the symmetry left and right side. We can spot unusual shapes of the canals, maybe oval or ribbon canal shape, etc. Next, we move to the coronal view. We evaluate from crown to roots. We have to check for the continuity of the period space. We have to identify periapical radiolucency if at all present. We have to look for the cortical plate perforation, as I made you saw in the last video. We have to trace the canal paths vertically. That is your inferior alveolar nerve or your nasopalatine nerve. Then we need to move to the sagittal view for the evaluation of the length and curvature of the roots and roots canal. We have to identify the sinus flow relationship with respect to maxillary posterior teeth. We have to look for any kind of canal blockages, ledges, or curvature severity in case of new treatment or retreatment cases. Next, we have to triangulate all these images into one. We have to confirm the same finding in all the three planes. For example, a radiolucency is present with respect to the periapex. It need to be present in all the three sections. When a lesion is present in one plane only, it is usually an artifact. It is not the actual lesion. So you need to triangulate all the images into the one plane to confirm the finding. Next, we have to adjust the window or the window for the contrast and brightness of the pictures. Higher contrast helps in spotting the fractures. Lower contrast somehow identify the soft tissue lesions. So next you have to look for the cortical plates. We can check for the thinning, expansion, or perforation in presence of a lesion. And we have to check for the vital structures such as mental foramen, mandibular canal, maxillary sinus. And then we have to somehow zoom in if vertical root fracture is present or not, or in case of resorptive lesions. Next, we have to always correlate with the clinical findings. CBCT alone cannot give you a definitive diagnosis. So you have to always correlate between the clinical findings and your radiographic findings. So step number 10 is the most important one. No diagnosis on CBCT alone. Next, I'll be showing few of the cases in which the CBCT was very helpful in making the treatment plan or making a prognosis check for the prognosis. So this was a 32-year-old lady who met with a roadside trauma in which 2-1 got completely avulsed, and Ellis class 1 fracture was clinically seen in 1-1. There was extrusive luxation with enamel fracture in 1-2. Ellis class 8, that is crown and mass fracture, was seen in 1-3, and 2-1 was avulsed. Now, see, along with the canine crown and mass fracture, there was an alveolar fracture as well, which was not detected on the normal radiographs. See for the canal anatomy, there is a palatal bone fracture here. Also, there is a presence of a lateral canal here, right? If you see in with respect to 1-2, crown and mass fracture was seen. There was few bits and pieces of the coronal part that was being left in support with those were held with the help of the soft tissues. Otherwise, we have a good root length. So this palatal fracture usually goes, undetected in normal radiographs. These are the CBCT constructed images of for the same patient. 2-1 was avulsed. The 1-3 was had crown and mass fracture with the multiple crown fractured fragments were present. Also, a large FOB was prescribed because the patient was having pain in the maxillary posterior too. So we can see a lesion is also present here. So we need to provide treatment for this patient, but maybe later on. But we need to check for the immediate. We need to check and provide emergency treatment to the patient. So for this patient, for 1-3, normal root canal was done, followed by post and core. For avulsion, sufficient time was given for the healing, and then implant placement was planned for the patient. And for this maxillary posterior tooth, normal root canal, non-surgical root canal was planned. So this was another patient who presented with horizontal root fracture in the cervical third in 2-1. He was presented with, he presented with complaint of, loosening or mild pain on the upper anterior. And there was also a history of trauma 10 to 11 years back when football directly hit the patient mouth while playing in the ground. So, some sort of root canal obliteration is being seen, and you can see some periapical changes, but that is not completely evitable. But when we got a CBCT done for the patient, a large periapical radiolucency with a PAIA score of 2 was present, and also diastasis was present between the two fractured fragments. There was a gap of 1.71 So this patient was advised for immediate, given two options: either go for the orthodontic extrusion followed by post and core and crown, or get it extracted and get the implant done for this patient. So the patient chose for the immediate implant. And for the another tooth, wait and follow was done. Patient was asked to get his previous x-rays done, and there was the radiolucency was somehow same during the course of years. So wait and watch policy was adopted for this particular tooth. So immediate implant was planned for this. So this was another interesting case. The patient presented with pain in the upper anterior region. Clinically, there was crown placed in 1-1 and 2-1, and there was slight mobility in 1-2. So when we got basic x-rays done for the patient, there was a huge lesion present in with respect to 2-1 and 2-2. In 1-2, we had dense invaginatus type 1, and also there was a displaced horizontal root fracture at the cervical third. So a combined approach of surgical, non-surgical and surgical approach was taken for the patient. To our big surprise, with all the findings, there was a big surprise. I'll tell you in the next slide. There was a through and through tunnel defect present here for this particular region. We adopted for the combined therapy for the non-surgical as well as surgical. This is a dense invaginatus type 1 present here, and this is an oblique root fracture. The positive point here is the fracture is subcrestal. So for this particular tooth, post and core or endodontic treatment could be done. The tooth is restorable somehow. So in 1-1 also, a segmental tear was also seen, which was not visible on the normal radiograph since it was present on the palatal surface. So in normal IOPS, we can look for the mesial and distal extension or any variations that are present on the mesial and distal surface. But any variation or any anatomical variation or any pathology that is present on the palatal surface of the root or buccal surface of the root, that often goes unnoticed. So segmental tear is also a kind of a root fracture, segmental tear, right? Some part of cementum gets completely detached from the root surface. So it may cause periodontal problems. It may lead to a pocket formation and somehow formation of a palatal lesion as well. So the definitive treatment plan for the segmental tear is to remove them and do the root scaling and root planing, and give definite periodontal treatment for this patient. So this was, you can also do the size estimation of the lesion from all the aspects. You can go from buccopalatally, mesiodistally, and enteroposteriorly. You can do the complete estimation of the size of the lesion using CBCT in different sections. So this is again CBCT reconstructed images in which of the same patient in which segmental tear is formed. You can see a saucer shape area here, and this segmental tear was thus part of the segmentum that was detached from the root surface, and a displaced horizontal root fracture. The coronal part was somehow displaced labially and incisally. The root portion was intact. The rest of the root portion was intact. Since the root fracture was subcrestal in nature, we did non-surgical RCT followed by post and core for this particular patient. Post was provided as a strengthening material between the two fracture fragments to pull them to pull together both the fragments. Right. This was another patient who presented with mild pain in the anterior region. You can see a radiolucent line in the middle part of the root. You have one radiolucent line which is very much clear, but the other radiolucent line is somehow dotted or incomplete. Although this was definitive, provided a definitive treatment of mid-root fracture, but somehow we were not sure whether it is there are two fracture lines or there are two fractures in the root. So we prescribed a CBCT, and to our surprise, this was an incomplete horizontal oblique root fracture, whereas the palatal aspect of the root was completely intact. So there was no need to get some surgical intervention in such patients. You can go for the normal root canal therapy. You can seal the fracture line with MTA or other biodentine or other bioceramic materials. You can go for the non-surgical part. There is no need to intervene surgically in such cases. Here also you can see the palatal aspect of the root is completely intact. There is a fracture line present on the buccal side corresponding with the sagittal picture here. There is slight, PDL widening, periapical lesion is also present. So we have to go for the non-surgical. We have to intervene non-surgically in such patient. We cannot go for watch and, wait for such patients. So this was another interesting case. So the patient also presented with a huge palatal swelling and pain. There was a huge periapical lesion present. There was open apex. You can very well see in this radiograph, the walls are somehow parallel in alignment, right? But to our surprise, the lesion was very extensive. You can see how much is the palatal defect here. And there were also two nasal perforations, which at all change the course of our treatment plan. Earlier we were planning to get surgically done, but then we decided to consolidate the lesion non-surgically, and then we will intervene surgically if at all needed. Right, so there was a huge palatal defect here. There was two nasal perforation. So this is very important for the pre-surgical assessment of the lesion. We have to go for surgically, or we have to go non-surgically, or we have to take a combined approach. So these are sections from the same patient. You can see, although if we see in the normal radiographs, the walls are parallel of the root canal, but actual shape of the apex is somehow teardrop shape. This is a root end part of the same tooth. Somehow when some lesion occurs or some sort of infection occur in the body, the healing mechanisms of the body also work together. So somehow there is a balance between the two. So this is slightly a root end part, or this wasn't sure whether it's a root end part or a bony part, or as a part of the body healing mechanisms. So this part was removed non-surgically from the main canal, as we had large orifice, so it was easier to remove it from the root canal. So we can see a huge lesion. We have buccal cortical plate destroyed. We have palatal cortical plate destroyed. So it is such a huge lesion. So here you can see, although the lesion was in relation with the canine also, but clinically it was vital when EPT was done for the patient. So non-surgically, when we proceeded in non-surgically to consolidate the region, initially RCT was done for the central and the lateral only. So you always need to correlate your findings clinically as well as radiographically together to come to a treatment plan. So this is another case. This was a full mouth rehab case. We had a patient with multiple carious teeth and root stumps, and he had to go for multiple extractions as well. So we got an CBCT done for the complete arch. You can see here premolar, it's a two-rooted premolar. Although the canal division had started at the middle third level, but the root division actually happened in the apical third. So you can look for how deep is the split, how deeply, or what is the actual location of the split of the root and the root canal, so you can accordingly make your treatment plan. So this was the root canal done for the patient. The patient has been kept on follow-up for the same. Another case, radix entomolaris. He had this patient presented with pain. Also, she had impacted third molar, which needed to be removed. So we get a scan of the complete mandible. So here you can look for the what is the angulation or what is the curvature of the of the third root, that is of the radix root. It is somehow lingually curved and lingually towards the buccal side, right? Towards the middle. So we need to be very careful when we do the cleaning and shaping procedures of such cases, so that transposition of the canal or perforations may not occur. So CVCT also helps management of such curved canals also. So it also helps in preventing the procedural errors such as ledge formation or transposition of the apical foramen or ledge formation, etc. So it helps in the treatment planning also. Another case of root resorption. So this patient, female patient, presented with a history of trauma of 33 years. This is a long history. And both the central incisors have yellowish discoloration. And when we did the first radiograph, there was completely replacement external root resorption with respect to 1-1. Right? See, 1-1 was only held in the alveolar arch with the help of the gingiva only. It was just loosely held. Whereas 2-1 was the root canal space and the pulse chamber was completely obliterated. So we got a CVCT done for the patient to check for the root canals. We had, and see, you can see almost the complete root resorption has occurred. Complete external root replacement resorption had occurred in this tooth. For this particular tooth, 1-1, immediate extraction followed by immediate implant was planned. And for this particular tooth, guided endo approach was taken to get to the apex of the tooth. So non-surgically root canal treatment using a guided approach was adopted, and for 1-1, immediate implant placement was done after the extraction. So this is for the management of the calcified canals and for external root resorption. So this was another patient with a history of trauma again, in which 2-1 was missing, got avulsed. So patient was referred from the orthodontics department for the evaluation of the sinuses. When we got the GP tracing done, there was a huge lesion present with respect to 1-1 and 1-2, and 2-2 presented with an open apex, immature roots, and 2-1 was, was at the time of the trauma. So since the patient had to go multiple ortho treatment, prosthetic rehabilitation, and multiple endodontic treatment, we got a full FOV scan done for him, which included the TMJ, some part of TMJ, maxillary, and the mandibular arches. So in different sections, we can evaluate, the teeth of the tooth. In 1-1 and 1-2, you can see how beautiful is the apical delta present over here. So you need to very clear, you need to properly shape, you need to adopt different techniques, and for the cleaning and shaping of the canals for the medicament placement. You cannot could destroy the apical part of the root, since it is already a trauma case. So you need to be very gentle, very organized in your approach while treating such cases. So in 2-2, there is an open apex present with the presence of a periapical lesion. You can very well appreciate this point in the axial view also. See, this is a large lesion present over here. There is destruction of the buccal cortical plate. However, the palatal cortical plate is somehow intact. Moving on ahead, this is a case of a retreatment. The patient had an RCT done for almost 13 years back, and now patient was experiencing some sort of pain. So when we got his radiographs done, so in general, for the endodontic treatment, you need to take multiple angulated x-rays of minimum 3 angulations, straight, mesial, and distal at 15 degrees, right? So for any of the endodontic case, you need to take 3 x-rays minimum for the preoperative evaluation. If these are inconclusive, then you can go for the CBCT scan for your cases, right? So in this, you can see there is both internal and external root resorption in the distal root, and there is missed canal in the mesial root, there is formation of a ledge. Both the roots are incompletely obturated, and there is a presence of a huge periapical lesion with respect to both roots. So we got a CBCT scan done for him for the resorptive defect evaluation, and also to check whether the periapical lesion is in contact with the inferior alveolar nerve or not. So we got his CBCT scan, in which it is very much clear that the mesiolingual canal was missed. The apical third of the both roots are calcified, which can be seen in the picture next to it. This is the cervical defect that is present. This is not external cervical resorption. This is, cervical defect, cervical carious defect. So you can see in the below images that GP and a ledge formation is seen in the mesiobuccal canal. There is internal resorptive defect in the distal root, and somehow the periapical lesion is very deep and somehow close to the inferior alveolar nerve. This is the inferior alveolar nerve going below the tooth. So we need to be very careful that any of the irrigant material or medicament or any of the obturating material, we have to contain it within the root canal space. So we have to be very careful that none of those goes into the periapical space, as the lesion is very close to the inferior alveolar nerve. So we need to be very careful while treating such cases. So it gives, good information regarding retreatment case. We have procedural errors, we have resorptive defects, we have, apical lesions. So it is a complicated case for us. So it can, CBCT can also be used for the follow-up evaluation, whether you treat the patient non-surgically or surgically. We have this case report published in International Arab Journal of Dentistry. It is a Scopus indexed journal. So you can see we did a treatment of the patient and we did a follow-up CBCT done. We can see how beautifully both the cortices are being formed. This was a through and through tunnel lesion present. This one was retreated, non-surgically retreated, and 1-2 was non-surgically treated. And this follow-up shows how beautifully the healing mechanisms of the body happens when suitable conditions are being given to the body. So in such cases, such beautiful healing can be appreciated. It can be used, in such cases, CBCT can be used for the outcome assessment of the particular case. So this was another interesting case. The patient presented with a history of trauma. He had a pain in lateral incisor. When we did a radiograph, we see a single teardrop shape appearance, radiographic appearance, that was dense invaginatus type 1. But to our surprise, when we got a CBCT scan done for the patient, there was a huge lesion. This is how we navigate through the CBCT. This patient presented actually with 2 dense invaginatus, one which was not visible in the routine radiographs. This patient has a large tunnel defect, through and through defect. I'll show you 2 dense invaginatus. This is invagination number 1. Invagination number 1, and this small invagination number 2. So you can very well appreciate there are 2 dense invaginatus which went unnoticed in the normal radiographic examination. Also, there is a huge buccal cortical defect here. So we planned out the lesion case non-surgically. So this you can very well correlate your clinical findings with the CBCT images. So these are the 2 dense invaginatus that are being present here, one in the palatal side and one in the distal side, which was not seen or which was not appreciable in the normal radiographic method. So it also helps during the intraoperative treatment planning done. When you are doing the treatment, you can always prescribe a CBCT scan if you find any complications or the same. So this was again one case report of ours which got published in European Journal of Clinical and Experimental Medicine, which happens again to be a Scopus Index journal, in which in this particular case, a 16-year-old boy presented with an extraoral sinus, and he had underwent endodontic treatment and treatment already with respect to the mandibular incisors. So there was a huge buccal cortical defect, huge bony defect seen, and this pointed thing is the GP that is dislocated in the periapical area. So again, you can look for very well that the mandibular incisive nerve bilaterally is somehow very closely present with respect to the lesion, right? So we need to be very careful for the surgical planning. So this patient underwent surgical intervention, and we had to be very careful because the mandibular incisive nerve was somehow very close to the lesion, and we can appreciate during surgery also. So these are the CBCT images for the same patient. The lingual cortical plate is intact, and you can very well appreciate in the sagittal section as well and in the coronal section as well. This is a reconstructed panoramic image of the same patient using the CBCT scan. And this little white point you can see, this is the extruded GP. Here also in the sagittal section, you can appreciate this. This white thing, this is the extruded GP that was happened during the previous treatment and retreatment attempted for the patient. So we did a CBCT scan at the end of 15 months to evaluate the healing outcomes of this particular patient. So there was just a small window being present after 15 months. So healing was good for this patient, in which the case was complicated as the patient has already gone endodontic treatment followed by non-surgical retreatment, and then we had to perform a surgery. So the healing pattern, healing was very nice in this particular patient. So again, this CBCT was used to evaluate the outcomes of the treatment that we gave to the patient. So to compile for the traumatic, specifically for the traumatic dental injury by the if we compare the guidelines that are being set by the AE, AOMR, ESE, and the International Association of Dental Traumatology, there is no requirement of the CBCT if the patient presented with a crown fracture, whether it is complicated or uncomplicated. Complicated means there is an involvement of the pulp canal space. Uncomplicated, that is enamel or dentine fracture. All right. So there is no need to get a CBCT done for this patient, whereas all of the societies encourages us to get a CBCT scan done for the root fractures, alveolar bone fractures, and lateral luxation. So for these kind of injuries, we need to prescribe a CBCT scan to the patient. All right. So these are the guidelines set by the different associations. So for crown and root crown fractures, no CBCT. For lateral luxative injuries, root fractures, and alveolar bone fracture, you need to get a CBCT done. So for CBCT can also be used for the research purpose as well, such as for the estimation of pulpal volume. For example, we all know that with aging and in the presence of severe periodontal problems, the pulpal volume decreases. So if the pulpal volume decreases, maybe it may be due to the body mechanisms such as formation of pulpal stones, or there is calcification. So overall, the pulpal volume of the particular tooth decreases. So it adds to a difficulty level of the our treatment plan. Somehow the case becomes slightly difficult if there are calcifications, if there are coronal pulp stones, or there are calcification in the apical third of the root. So the difficulty level of the case increases. So such kind of CBCT could also be used for the research purpose also, in general, for the general population as well. For this research purpose, you need not get to done a CBCT scan done for all patients. You can use the archival records for such study purpose, so the patient doesn't get unnecessarily exposed to CBCT or radiation, right? So to concluding remarks from my side would be that a CBCT is an indispensable tool for diagnosis, treatment plan, as combination of the prognosis. There is a definitely learning curve. You need to spend some time. You need to spend at least 40 to 50 minutes to study a full FOV scan. So there is a learning curve. You need to know what you need to see. You need to check out for everything. You cannot just scan one section, one axial section, and then you want to study the other two sections. No, you have to study all the three sections. You have to triangulate all of them together to get to a conclusion. you need to convey to the radiologist about the specific findings that you need. So that is, you always need to work as a team. You need to tell specifically to the diagnostician or the radiologist that what are the findings that you are looking for, what is your clinical diagnosis, and what are you expecting from the scan. So you need to be very careful and very specific what all the findings you need to tell to the radiologist. And you should always ask for your files or CBCT scan data or DICOM files. Although the radiologist gives you a report, but you need to cross check yourself. You need to evaluate the CBCT scan files yourself, and you have to correlate whether the findings that are being given by the radiologist are same that you are looking for, or you have some different, you are getting some different findings. Then if you are getting some different findings, you need to get back to the radiologist to confirm the finding whether it is correct or not. So you have to always work as a team. And always the CBCT scan should be patient or case specific. You need to be very specific whether CBCT is actually required for the patient or not. You need to follow the guidelines that are being set by the different associations throughout the world. No, it has to be patient specific with respect to his age, his gender, his weight, and everything. Whether any medical condition is present or not. Suppose the patient is pregnant or the patient is a pediatric patient. So all the CBCT scans should be very much patient and case specific. So with this, I would like to thank my teachers who had shaped my professional life. Also, my husband, Dr. Rajkumar. He's an orthodontist by profession and currently serving in PGI Chandigarh. My son, Ronak. So I express my gratitude towards them. Thank you so much. And also to my listeners here. And thank you so much. This is my email ID and this is my scan code for the Instagram. You can follow me at that page also. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, you can please put it up if I could reply.
Thank you, ma'am, for this wonderful session. There are some questions in chat box.
Yeah.
And there is a question from Ali, ma'am. What are the common CBCT artifacts encountered in endodontics and how can they influence image interpretation?
All right, okay. See, CBCT artifacts can be in the form of noise or in the form of beam hardening. So you need to ask your diagnostic center to use certain filters such as bar filters or MAR filters so that the artifacts may be reduced. Also, for some cases, supposedly, if you are looking for if you are doing a retreatment case and you are suspecting some missed canals, so you need not to remove the previous GP, so that the any missed canals could be located. But you can ask your radiologist to use the MAR filters. But in case of vertical root fractures, as we know, vertical root fractures are very much common in the endodontically treated team. So for such cases, you can remove the GP first and then you can send for the scan so that you can get a proper scan for this, right? So image interpret, it becomes difficult for in case of beam hardening. It presents with some black radiolucent lines. So in case some vertical root fracture or any crack line is present, so you can it can generally get misdiagnosed if such artifacts are present. So you need to be very case specific, and you can always ask your radiologist to use those softwares such as and their filters, right?
And there's a question from Madhu, ma'am. In which clinical situations is CBCT preferred over peripheral radiographs or for endodontic diagnosis?
See, for endodontic diagnosis, CBCT is always prescribed after your periapical radiographs, fails to gives you a diagnosis. So you always have to get the periapical radiographs done first, followed by CBCT. So always you need to get your periapical radiographs first. If they are inconclusive, then you can go for CBCT. So there is no particular situation in which CBCT could be done before the periapical radiographs. No.
And there's a question from Dhanush. What precautions should be taken to minimize radiation exposure when prescribing CBCT in endodontic cases?
See, for the to minimize the radiation exposure, always go for a low FOV scan. For the low FOV scan, the radiation exposure is almost 1/3 as compared to the full FOV scan. So, low FOV, you need to specifically mention the tooth and why you are prescribing a CBCT. Then you have to prove whether there is a presence of a periapical lesion or you are looking for a vertical root fracture. You need to be very specific, and a low FOV scan could be prescribed to reduce the radiation exposure.
And there's a question from Sarah. How reliable is CBCT in diagnosing vertical root fractures compared to traditional imaging methods?
See, nowadays various filters are being used, such as bar filters and MAR filters that are being used by the diagnostic center. So CBCT is very well, accurate in diagnosing vertical root fracture. See, vertical root fracture present with multiple symptoms, right? There is no one symptoms. As previously we used to say that J-shaped radiolucency is pathognomic of vertical root fracture. No, it is not. See, but J-shaped radiolucency can be present in multiple cases. So CBCT is very much reliable when you use proper conditions and proper filters that are being used by the radiologist. So
And
it is
there's a question from Tejashwini. What is the role of CBCT in identifying missed canals and unusual root canal anatomy during endodontic treatment?
it has CBCT provides us, bigger picture of the missed canals. So missed canals is generally present in the previously treated tooth. For such cases, there is no need to remove the GP. You can get. I had shown one case also in which the mesolingual canal was missed during the previous treatment. And for the unusual root canal anatomy, such as dens invaginatus, I had shown one case also in the periapical radiograph. Only one dens was seen, but during the CBCT scan, we observed there were two dens invaginatus. That is one of the rare kind of the cases that we see. So CBCT has a great role in cases of missed canals and unusual root canal anatomy. It is very much useful.
And there's a last question from Pawan. Why is limited field of view recommended for endodontic CBCT imaging?
Limited field of view is because of the higher spatial resolution. Higher spatial resolution will be present in limited FOV. That means the images will be more clear as compared to the large FOV scan.
That's it in the chat box, ma'am.
Thank you.
And thank you for an excellent session on CBCT in endodontics. Your expertise and practical insights made the webinar highly informative and valuable. We truly appreciate your time and contribution, as well as the audience who are active since 1 hour.
Thank you so much.
And would you like to have any closing note, ma'am?
Closing is you need to be very specific. You can go for a CBCT scan, but you need to justify the need for it. Obviously, the radiation exposure is more for the patient as compared to your conventional radiograph, but it is much lesser as compared to the medical CT. So, if the patient is well-being, because the cost of CBCT is more as compared to the normal radiograph. If the patient is well-being and you need to get it done to provide the proper treatment to the patient, you always can get your CBCT scan done, but you need to weigh the risk and benefit first, and whether it is actually needed or not. It is not for every case, it is for specific condition or cases. You can very well go with the CBCT scan, and it is actually a game changer for your endodontic practice, I must say. For the last 4 and 5 years, I have been regularly using CBCT scan for my patients when it is indicated, not for always. Mind my words, not always, but when indicated. So it has been a game changer for me. So that is my concluding remarks.
Thank you, ma'am. Once again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a nice day, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.